looking at danger close now.
Roger, keep your fires west of the smoke. Commander's initials, Bravo, go!
Welcome back to the Danger Close podcast, where faith meets the front lines. I'm your host, Skip Bessey, and today's episode I'm super excited about. It took a while to put it together, and it took a little bit longer than I wanted it to, so I apologize for that. It's my fault. We had the whole Amazon thing that kind of interrupted the platform that I use. But we got it squared away, and this episode is going to be called "It's Not Easy," because let's be honest. Whether it's sports, leadership, or faith, anything worth doing takes work, it takes discipline, and it also takes sacrifice. I've got two great guests with me today, Coach Sam Smith, a veteran basketball coach, and Coach Larry Thornton, who coached soccer at both the high school and is now coaching at the college level. We're going to talk about what it takes to build a successful team, develop players, and stay disciplined. And then we'll look at how that same commitment applies to our walk with Christ. So, coaches, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Skip.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. And it's great to have you both on the Danger Close podcast show. So I'm going to ask you guys questions, and I'll get your perspective on both of those. So I'll start with Larry. First of all, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into coaching.
Started my career, I was an athletic trainer in the sports medicine industry, and grew up playing soccer and playing baseball. But soccer was the one sport that I really enjoyed, and it played at Brunswick High School, won 2 state championships there in the mid 80s. But after college or after high school, college soccer was not kind of in my plan. I got into the athletic training curriculum at Keene State College. Did a lot as an athletic trainer. You're following teams and coaches. And I just always enjoyed that perspective as well from my job as an ATC. But after I moved back to Maine, after spending a couple of years as an athletic trainer in professional sports, mostly hockey, I took an opportunity to move back to Maine and kind of transition out of the sports medicine industry. And that was in 2002. I decided that I was going to get my hand at coaching some high school soccer in Livermore Falls, where soccer was not a beloved sport by any means. Coaching soccer in a football community was pretty hard, but thank goodness I was established in that community from years past of being the athletic trainer there. But I was able to start kind of get that program back going in the right direction, and spent about 8 or 9 years or so coaching varsity soccer at Livermore Falls. Then I moved on to coaching girls varsity soccer at Buckfield. I was there for 9 years. And then just recently, 2 years ago, transitioned over to become the head women's soccer coach at the University of Maine, Augusta. So kind of been involved in probably over 20 years, but one of the biggest things was being able to take so much of my experiences as an athletic trainer over the years of meeting all these great coaches from professionals to college to high school. I was able to take a lot of that and apply it to what I'm doing now. It's not just about soccer. It's also about managing people and young adults. And I think that's kind of where my experience is coming in. The soccer piece, I know the game, but I think it's the managing the people piece and getting the right people in the right places on a game field is kind of where my strength lies.
Yeah.
It's been a tremendous experience.
Yeah. No, I enjoy following the Moose and how you guys do, and I love it when I see some of my students that go down there and play for you. And yeah, congratulations on that gig, well deserved and well earned. Sam, how about sharing a little bit about how you got into coaching?
Yeah, so I grew up playing football, basketball, baseball, but basketball was always my number one sport. I played 4 years of varsity at Lake Region High School. Great experience at Lake Region. Taught me a lot about who I am as a person. and eventually what I wanted to be as a coach. I moved on and played a year of college basketball at University of Maine Presque Isle, and then I transferred to Thomas College, where I played 2 years there. Played my sophomore and my junior year, and after my junior year, I was feeling very, very burnt out of the game of basketball. I was playing year round since I was like probably 8 or 9, and played a lot of it, like I said. And I think I just lost the love for it. I couldn't, getting up to go work out in the off season, when you need to, was not as enjoyable for me as it used to be. So I actually left the team my senior year at Thomas, and I was kind of lost and nowhere to go. I always knew that I wanted to get into coaching. I just didn't know how it would happen. And so I left that spring, and that later on that spring in early summer, the freshman boys basketball coaching position opened up at Waterville High School, where I was obviously going to school at Thomas. So I was like, well, might as well throw my name in the hat, see if I can get started early. And I ended up getting the job. I coached with a legendary Maine basketball player and coach Nick Pilot for my first year, and coached right while I was going through college, and then stayed there and got into teaching. Obviously, got into JMG. Spent 2 more years there as the JV coach, and then I spent 3 years there as a varsity coach. And then I spent the last 2 years at Messalonsky High School coaching the boys varsity team there. We had a good couple seasons there, and then this upcoming year, this winter, in a few weeks, will be my first season at Lake Region High School. So kind of coming back full circle, and going back to where I came from, moved back home, and so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, congratulations on that Lake Region job. That's got to be a great experience going back to where you kind of, where you played. And there's probably still some people that remember it wasn't that long ago, not as long as when me and Larry were in high school.
No, and some of my coworkers and my new coworkers in my job are from my former teachers.
Yeah, that's
So
great. That's a great experience.
it's cool.
Yeah, any college sport. I mean, I can attest. I know a lot of people, and I played a year of college basketball at UMA way back in the day. But it's a grind. I mean, it's a grind playing any college sport, especially trying to balance that. College in and of itself is a grind, and then throw in 3 hours of or more of practices every day, and it's tough.
Yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah, and I enjoyed your run at Messo too. That was a good run you had there at Messalonsky. It was fun to watch you guys play and play in the tournament down there at the Civic Center.
Yeah, that was some highlights of my coaching career so far, for sure. Really of my life. I mean, that was a really fun time. Good group of kids.
Yeah. So, kind of going on with the coaching thing, I can't wait to hear, and I think I kind of know what Sam's going to say, and I'll start with Sam. So, who are some of the mentors and influences that help shape the way you coach today?
Yeah, I think me being a young coach, I try and take a little bit from every coach that I see. I think in all different sports too. I think I try and pick up things that maybe a football coach will say or do, and it doesn't even have to be basketball. So I feel like my coaching strategy and who I am on the sidelines and who I am at practice is kind of evolves and has evolved every year, because I just get different influences. The last 2 years, our main rival at Messalonsky was Hamden Academy, one of the best, arguably one of, if not the best coaches in Maine high school basketball is Russ Bartlett at Hamden, and he's been there. And, watching him and studying him so much. So watching film, trying to figure out how to beat him taught me a lot. But I would say my biggest influence was my high school coach. He also coached me in 8th grade, and then he got the varsity job when I was a freshman. Was Coach JP Yorkie. He had a style that was maybe different than what other people typically thought a coach should do, and yell and scream and all of that. He was kind of even keel. He didn't get too high, didn't get too low. I think the biggest piece of that I took was that people all the time, I heard it all the time, they wanted him to yell, they wanted him to get mad or upset, and he just was who he was, and he didn't stray from that. And I always go back to that because me being a young coach, it's very easy to get influenced, you know, be like, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to be like this. And something I've learned is you're going to be the best if you're going to coach, you're going to be the best coach you can be by being who you are, by
Amen.
being yourself. You
Yeah.
can't try and be like anybody else. And my high school coach was just like that. He never swore. He never raised his voice really. Occasionally he did, but he was just so even keeled. And I feel like in a basketball, standpoint, that helps kids. And that's who I am naturally too. So it helps me be like, okay, it's okay to be like that. But in a late game scenario or a state championship at the Augusta Civic Center, if they're all hyped up and they can look over at their coach and their coach is even keeled and not panicking, then hopefully that can help them do the same way. So my high school coach, JP York, I still obviously stay in touch with him very regularly. So he did a lot for me, and he was a big influence for me.
Yeah. Same question, Larry.
A little bit different for me. I mean, the first person that had the most influence on me as a soccer player and coach is legendary high school soccer coach Peter Gardner, who I was coached by at Brunswick, and he is still coaching to this day.
Yeah.
He's the boys coach at Richmond.
Wow.
I'm not sure how many years this makes. I used to see him every year, saw him even last year, still winning state championships. But he was probably, from a soccer standpoint, my first real big influence. But it's when I was really as an athletic trainer and I was learning from all these other coaches, right up to one of your old coaches, Skip, and that Mike Henry at Jay High School. When I was the athletic trainer at Jay High School, I learned about so much from managing kids from him. Also, Ron Beatty and Jim Hersom at Livermore Falls when I was an athletic trainer. But then also when I worked in professional hockey and professional baseball as an athletic trainer, I was always taking stuff from all those coaches. And I think one of the biggest ones that had an influence on me and just the intensity of coaching, the preparedness, was Ed Flaherty at USM, who's the retired baseball coach. But being around him for the 2 seasons that I was around him as the team's athletic trainer, for just baseball, I spent 2 years at USM working on some graduate work, but I was assigned to baseball. And just to be around him and his approach and how he handled players was something I really learned a lot from. And then it went on to pro hockey and so forth. But where I pulled a lot of great stuff from. But it even goes back to, I mean, to this day, I mean, my assistant at UMA is named Chris Peterson. I've already been pulling stuff from that he's been teaching, the players, and I learned how to, interact with some of my current players just by watching what he does. And then also my old friend Bill Acrotelli, who helped me coach Livermore Falls for a number of years. Those people may not be teaching you, but the things they show you or how they react and interact with players, continue to learn from.
Yeah, those are both really good answers. Obviously, you guys know that I was a coach up until this year, actually, football coach. And but one of my biggest influences, I know Larry knows Bob Fitzgerald, my high school basketball coach. That was going way back now, but he was such a huge influence on me. I was kind of a punk, and he reminds me a lot of in the way Sam coaches. I've never raised his voice, but you knew when he went business just by body language and how he kind of changed his posture a little bit. You knew he meant business, and he took a lot of that young punk out of me and actually really gave me a lot of discipline. But like you two, I mean, I think we all as coaches take a little bit of something from everybody that we come into contact with, and at least at the high school level. And I can't speak to college level coaching, but it's all about how to manage your players. It's all about how you can get the most out of your players. But yeah, I mean, I think just picking little things up from other coaches, like football wise, I mean, Walter Pokey is just, his mind and the way football works itself, just the football standpoint, but the football IQ, that's where I got a lot of my football IQ from. As far as how to manage players, I really go all the way back to Bob Fitzgerald and how he managed his basketball team.
Fitzy with me, the same thing with Fitzy actually. As an athletic trainer when I was at Jay High School, he was one of the first ones too that took me in. He and his family, because I was a single guy, just moved to Farmington, living on my own. But he was one of those. He and his family took me in for dinners and talked to me about the community and so on. So I mean, his influence like that too. I got to sit on the bench with him as the trainer and learn from him.
You definitely don't even realize it. You know, I'm sure you both have had this happen too. I've had kids come back to me and been like, "You were my favorite teacher. You were my favorite coach," and I'm like, I don't remember ever, you know, having that sort of influence. But it's a gift to do what we do, and we have influence. Yeah.
For sure. Well, now we're going to get into the nitty gritty here. Now that I got to know a little bit about you guys and your coaching experience, and we're going to get kind of into the nitty gritty. So we'll start with Larry. When you think about successful teams, what role does discipline play?
As far as discipline, like behavioral discipline or discipline trying to get the team to be disciplined?
I think more about the team itself, and you can even go as far as to individual discipline. You know, what does it take for a player or a team to be successful when it comes to discipline?
I think one of the biggest things is that everybody, for one, I think that you got to have clear and defined boundaries and what they, what the expectations are. And I think that in itself will allow you to either have discipline within the team, but also it shows the team that there's a standard that we're going to work at, and the expectation is we are going to follow X, Y, and Z. And I think if everybody understands that, and if it's set soon, early in the season, and we do ours in preseason, is that here are the expectations. And I think everybody will follow that or is expected to follow that. The issues that you have will be very few. We've come across that, over the years of, well, what does the policy say? Or what is the expectation for them? And you have to be able to have that established. And I think that is probably one of the biggest keys, is to set your expectations, either through policy or standards that you hand out at the beginning of a season. But I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And then any discipline that comes off of that, of not meeting the expectation of whatever it be, practice time, absences, unexcused, whatever it may be, you can easily turn right back to it and say, this is what we expect. This is the standard.
Yeah.
And that's something at UMF we're really doing pretty well with this year, is kind of coming up with these, or at the beginning of the year, we came up with, standards and expectations, and we've stuck right to it. And the players have done a really, really good job. And I think that also helps building the culture.
Sure. Sam, same question.
Similar to Larry, I think you got to start it early. And I also think it starts at the top. Discipline starts, at the top with your coaches and setting a standard. But when I think of successful teams, all of them are disciplined. They have members on the team that come to work, which is practice for them, every single day with a goal in mind, with an open mind to the coach, which has a plan. And I think trust is a big factor in that, because I think if you have a common goal in mind, which you should talk about with your teams early on, if you have that common goal in mind, then trust has to be built. I don't think it can just be there. I think it has to be built, in that if you build that trust, discipline will come, and the kids will trust you and know that they have to stick to the plan, and stick to the common goal that we all want to accomplish. So you have to set that goal, and just stay on them every single day, and ideally, the really successful teams have captains that also abide by that discipline, and that they're like an extension of the coach. And they might not always, with their personal beliefs, they might not always agree or want to do something that the coach wants them to do, but they trust that it's the right thing to do, and that they know that they all want to accomplish that goal. So they have to do it, and it's just a thing you have to do. So I think the best, the most successful teams at any team you want to think about, all of them are disciplined and they all trust each other.
Yeah, I went to the Levitt Messalonsky football game the other night, and I was standing with the one of the assistant principals and another teacher, and we were watching the game, and we were just noticing how disciplined Levitt's program is. And when I look at some of the top programs in the state, it's very easy to pick out the ones that are consistent, consistently in the talk or in the mix for, the playoffs and sometimes those upper echelon, regionals and state championship games. If you look at them, those teams year after year after year, they're the most disciplined teams. I mean, even something as simple as how I'm talking football now, um, come out of the huddle, the line comes out of the huddle, they get up on the line, you look at them and like, wow, they're like very disciplined, very few penalties. And again, I think that leads to expectations, like Larry said. I think at Levitt, it's the expectation that you will be disciplined. I mean, at Levitt at this point, I think you come out of the womb with a football in your hand. I mean, those guys are I just think it's a culture also. I think it's up to the coach to set that culture of an unspoken rule that we are just going to be disciplined. We're going to show up to practice on time. We're not going to be late. There's all those little things that matter when it comes to discipline. And I really love that word discipline, because you're coaching young adults right now. I think it's something that is not universal. I think it used to be universal. I think nowadays, that word discipline, it's harder for some. It's harder for some.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
and you guys
It
said
is.
it, the coach sets that standard and that expectation, very early on. So thank you for sharing that. This is gonna be an easy question, maybe it might be tough. I'll start with Sam. What separates the players who succeed from those that don't?
Well, you speak on discipline. I think that the successful players are disciplined. I think the most successful players are also positive and have an undeniable belief in themselves and their teammates. I think that those traits, like you can see any successful, however you want to measure success. For me, success is not always wins and losses. It's kind of how they handle themselves on and off the court, and things of that nature. And I think successful kids are, positive, and they just believe in themselves, their teammates, their coaches. I think belief and not trying to prove that they're right all the time. I think they have a growth mindset as well. Obviously, they put in the work and they're disciplined and they're very good athletes and they succeed on that level. But I think it goes deeper than that. I think really successful athletes are really good people. And I think it shows, like when you're a really good person and you strive to be that in everything you do. I think that shows up on the athletic fields and courts and everything.
For sure. Larry, how about you?
I think one of the biggest things is commitment. That, and I agree with everything Sam was saying. The one thing that I look for is that commitment to the success of the team, and do they put themselves over that? That's the most important thing, is the success of the team and their commitment to that. It can't be, you know, well, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. I'm going to be late for this, I'm going to be late for that. When they sacrifice, when they don't make the sacrifice for the best interest of the team. I think that is one of the things that, especially as you go up to the college level, is that the commitment is a lot more intensive. Um, at the college level, school is obviously, they're there to go to college and get a degree. That's paramount. That's first and foremost. But after that, what we ask them is to make that commitment to the team. And so we do have players who miss practice because of a lab or because of a class, or they're late because of a class, or a clinical that they may have. But other than that, it's that making that commitment to your team and over yourself. I think that's probably one of the biggest things. The other part is, like Sam was saying, is the discipline to put in the work every day, to come and be a leader every day. Um, I I'm one of the firm believers that you don't need an armband to be a leader.
Mm.
And if you come in and work and show that every single day, that's a leader too. So I think that is another piece, is that discipline, like you guys were just saying. That I think that's one of the biggest things.
Great, Ann.
But commitment to me.
Sam, you got something?
I also, just to add to that, because as Larry's talking, I think that like the most successful players are connectors.
Mm.
They connect everybody.
Yep.
And through their play, but also like we were talking about, through who they are and what they do on a daily basis, when no one's watching. I think that those are the type of kids, I can say the best and most successful kids that I've coached or seen just connect everybody, and they
Yep.
want, everyone wants to be around them. So
Yeah, connector. I really like that. I hadn't heard that. And what's so
Yeah.
funny is when we get done with the interview and I get on to talk, all these words that you guys use, and I just want to let the audience know, we did not practice any of this. This is a one-shot gig. So when I start getting into this, as I'm looking down through the words that you guys are using, are words that I'm going to be using, and I kind of did that on purpose, but it's just great that it's actually happening. It gets me kind of giddy inside that it's actually working. So I want to thank you guys quite a bit. And this is taking longer than I expected, but I'm really enjoying the conversation. This is all good stuff. But we are coming to an end. So I got two more questions for you guys, and I'll ask the first one to Larry, and then I'll ask the last one to Sam. And if either one of you guys want to chime in on each other's questions, that's fine. So for Larry first, how do you personally stay motivated and focused through long seasons, maybe some setbacks, or maybe some bad losses?
I think it's one of the things I do, and it kind of keeps me grounded, is that I just always have to remember this is a game and it's a sport and it's for fun when it comes down to it. Especially at the college level, yes, I want to win. I am there to compete and go hard and push them hard. But when it's all said and done and we walk away after a bad loss and I get home, my wife says, you got 24 hours to get rid of it, and then you're done. As I've gotten older into coaching, is that just, you got to drop it. So I think that for me is just, I do boil it down to, when it comes down to it, it is a game. And it's fun, and it's helping them build relationships and futures with friends and so forth. So that's kind of, I don't know if that was the same way a number of years ago, but as I've gotten older, I think it's been something that I really try to boil it down at the end.
Sam, do you need
I think-
to add
I think-
anything?
Larry hit it right on nail on the head. I mean, for me, I learned these last 2 years at Messalonsky, and these last 2 years at Messalonsky specifically taught me how to have joy. And the kid, who taught me that was the kids I was coaching. I run this shooting drill at the beginning of every practice. Kids are partnered up, two at a basket, and they shoot for 10 straight minutes. They change different shots, whether it's twos, threes, dribble pull-ups, whatever. But like I said, I was the type of coach that was like, and the player that is like, we're focused, we're in between the lines, we're not having fun, we're disciplined, we're focused, and that's just who I was. And so I coached like that at Waterville. And sometimes I think about it and I'm like, I wish I was different back then at Waterville, because then I got to Messalonsky and this happened. And I had a kid on my team. He was a junior, so he was a senior last year, and he would do those drills. Like he would just like, kind of like he was in his driveway, just slowly, kind of like 3, 2, 1 fade away. Like, he just wasn't taking it seriously, and he's laughing and he's joking throughout the whole thing. And the first time I saw him do this, I'm boiling. blood boil. I'm like, I'm about to, rip this kid, and like, I can't have this happen. And one of my assistant coaches was like, just give it a second, give it a minute, let him go through the process, and then, do the next drill, see what happens. And I'm like, so I'm like really hot about it. And then we go into the next drill. He was the most competitive kid in the entire drill, the rest of practice, every practice for 2 years. But for that one drill, for whatever reason it was, he just wanted to like have fun and enjoy it. And he was with his best friend that he grew up with. So he was like shooting, like he just like having fun. And he had a death in his family. His mother had died that previous fall of his or spring summer of his junior year. So he had a lot of like pain in his life, and I started thinking about that, and I was like, you know what, like everyone else is taking this seriously, but I need to nothing about his process, you know is bad. He's just like, it kind of like made me realize like joy has to be a part of the process. Have to. Otherwise you lose it. You lose the love, you lose the focus,
Yeah. No, that's a
so
great story.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's why you come around.
great answers. Last
It's
question.
way to bring it all the way back, Sam.
Last question, and we'll start with Sam. If a young player or coach is listening right now, what's one piece of advice you'd give them about staying committed to their goals? We'll start with Sam.
um, Fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. I think everyone wants the success, but few are willing to show up every day and when it's hard and when no one's watching.
Good answer.
If you can stay consistent through the tough days, I think that's where the real growth happens. Um, don't chase the quick results. We live in a generation where we have a 6-second attention span. When something doesn't load on your screen, you want to go to the next thing. I think build habits that make success inevitable. Whether you're coaching or playing, your commitment has to outlast your emotions. And some days you'll feel it, and some days you won't, but you still have to show up.
Amen. Larry, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think one of the things too is, as Sam said, kind of enjoy the process, but it's just enjoy the entire thing. Enjoy the whole thing. Enjoy preseason. Enjoy the season. Enjoy coming down to the playoffs. Enjoy the whole thing. I coach in a wonderful time of year during the fall, and the colors are out, and it's cold. Cool air, or you're playing in the heat of the summer, but I tell them, just take a look around. How nice it is to be out here on a soccer field on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, I've seen. So again, thank you guys very much for agreeing to come on. That concludes all my questions. Some of the things that I circled as you're talking and made note of is, and I'm just going to throw some of these words out there and some of the things that you said. I heard follow XYZ. I don't remember which one of you said that. It was near the beginning, but I like that. And it kind of went back to expectations and standards. I heard the word trust. I heard connectors. I heard work, sacrifice, joy. I heard a couple of times, have fun, discipline we talked about. And we ended with fall in love with the process. And I think that it is a process to be successful at something. And that's how we kind of got into this conversation is what makes a successful team. And I think, fall in love with the process is, I think that it kind of encompasses everything that we're talking about, because the process is being a connector, working, sacrificing, having some discipline, making it fun. All those things I think are important to the process, and you guys as coaches, I think you guys set those expectations. And I think for you, and I know you guys fairly well, I think you make that process fun, and I think you make that process enjoyable. And I think you guys both set those expectations. So thank you very much. As I said before we got onto this, I'm going to tie all this into following Jesus and how it's not easy and that it's a process and all those things that we talked about. Like I said, I was super excited as I'm listening to you guys talk, because you're giving me more ammo to use in how I'm going to connect this. And I really, really appreciate it. So thank you both, Sam and Larry, for taking time for this interview. I really, really appreciate it. I think this is going to be an excellent episode, and I'm really happy you guys agreed to come on. So thank you very much.
Yeah, man. Of course.
Thank you,
And
Skip.
we'll
Appreciate
see
the
you
opportunity
soon.
to
Yeah, I
reach
won't
out.
see you
Yes.
anymore.
You won't
I know we don't see
see me
Sam
anymore, but I'll be there in spirit. Bro Circle forever lives on.
Amen. I will definitely come down and catch some Lake Region games for sure.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Take care.
See ya.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so that was I'll tell you what, that was pretty good. I had a bunch of questions, and as I could have cut some questions out, but I really like their answers, and I'm sorry that this podcast is maybe a little bit longer than my other ones, but they gave me some really good answers, and I think when I tie this all into following God and how it's not easy, I think a lot of the reason you're going to know why I wanted to keep this thing going, because their answers were just so good. And they're really a couple of genuinely good guys. Larry and Sam, I've known them for a while now, and just really good guys, good coaches, players coaches. And anybody who's played any kind of sports knows what that means. And a player's coach usually is a coach people want to play for. So again, when it comes to following God in today's culture, it takes courage and it takes commitment. Commitment is something that Sam and Larry both talked about, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. It's not easy to stand firm when the world pushes compromises on you. And when you're following Jesus Christ, it seems like in today's culture, some people make compromises. Some churches make compromises. Some pastors and priests make compromises. It's not easy. It needs to be a commitment. When temptations whispers convenience, it's not easy to choose holiness when everyone else is choosing comfort. And that is what is happening. Comfort over holiness, comfort over truth, comfort over commitment. Jesus never promised that it's going to be easy, just like coaches don't promise that it's going to be easy. Jesus promised that it's going to be worth it. And that's what you have to remember. Some key scriptures I want to talk about. Luke chapter 9, verse 23. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. Following Jesus means saying no to yourself, no to your flesh, and yes to him. And you have to do that daily. You have to do that hourly. You have to do that by the minute, by the second, because following Jesus Christ goes against our flesh. It takes commitment. Once you're filled with the Holy Spirit, once you've committed to Christ, hang on, because you're going to get under attack. You're going to be tempted. But the difference is now you got the Holy Spirit living inside of you, and you should be convicted of those things. Discipleship isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily discipline. And I've mentioned this before, once you become a follower of Jesus, you become a disciple of Jesus. It's now a responsibility that you have to live for Christ, to spread his word, and we all do that differently. It takes commitment. It's a process. To be successful, it's going to take work. Again, following XYZ, I believe Larry said it's an XYZ thing, right? It's expectations that you set. When you become a follower of Christ, you have certain expectations that you need to follow. And that takes discipline to do that, especially as a follower of Christ. In today's culture, it takes a lot of discipline. Temptations are everywhere. I was talking to a young man in my Bible study. At school, he stayed after, and he's like, man, I really struggle with going to the gym. Some of the way that some of the people dress at the gym, it's not good for me to be there. So he went out and he bought himself a small home gym so he doesn't have to be tempted with that. And again, good on him for doing that, because a lot of people struggle with those types of things. Carrying your cross means embracing sacrifice, not avoiding it. Embrace that sacrifice. Don't avoid it. God wants you to embrace that sacrifice. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24 through 27. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. I discipline my body and keep it under control. Again, if you're going to compete, as a follower of Christ, it takes discipline to keep your body under control. Paul compares the Christian life to athletic training. Smart guy. Probably one of the most influential writers of the New Testament, requiring focus and endurance and self-control. All of those things need to be in sync with each other, all happening at the same time. Just like athletes train for trophies that fade, we train for a crown that lasts forever. And we're on this, there's something that I have to keep in mind. I have had some friends recently who've dealt with death, and that's one thing that we're all going to have to deal with at some point in time is that death. And we're here for a short period of time, and I can't remember where I heard, but we're just tourists on earth right now. We're just tourists, and we're going to leave. And where will we spend eternity? That's the long-term goal. Where are you going to spend eternity? Are you going to spend eternity with Christ, or are you going to face the alternative and spend eternity in hell? Spiritual discipline equals prayer, scripture reading, service to God. That should be part of our plan. I talk to my students all the time about having a plan, having a goal, having a SMART goal, a specific goal, a measurable goal, a realistic goal. Part of achieving those goals, or achieving our goal in our walk with Jesus, is prayer, worship, scripture, fellowship with other Christians, and all those work hand in hand with each other. A mentor of mine, Scott, who's an elder at my church, he talks about how those legs hold you up. And if you take any of those out, you could potentially fall. So you got to remember all those things. Hebrews 12, verses 1 and 2. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes upon Jesus, fixing our eyes upon the finish line, fixing our eyes upon the goal. And that goal is to give Jesus Christ a big hug after we bow down to him, after we look at him and cry and say, oh my gosh. We got to fix our eyes on the goal, and that's Jesus Christ. Staying faithful requires endurance, not sprinting, but steady obedience to Christ. Keeping your eyes on Jesus helps you push through fatigue and distraction. The crowd might not always cheer, but Jesus is always cheering for you. Fellow believers, the ones you fellowship with, are always cheering for you. Let me tell you something. Over the past couple of weeks, I've had several people reach out to me about being in a heavy depression, about thinking horrible thoughts, and I get it, but that is Satan. That's that spiritual warfare that we go through. Whenever you start feeling like that, you always have somebody to turn to. That somebody's Jesus Christ. That somebody is prayer. That somebody is fellow Christians that you can call up and talk to. And I'm so grateful that people feel that way, to feel that we connect in that way. Reach out to me reach out to somebody. Reach out to Jesus if you ever have those thoughts. Get on your hands and knees and pray and talk to him. He'll reach out and he'll talk to you back. It won't be vocal. It might be. But more often than not, you will feel a peace that comes over you, and he will answer those prayers. You got to accept Jesus Christ into your life. It literally changes your life, changes the way you look at things. And the last one, James chapter 1, verse 12, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life. Trials don't weaken our faith, they prove it. God uses difficulty as training to prepare us for greater purpose. And we need to remember that. So first and foremost, I want to thank Sam and Larry for coming on the podcast, and thank you for joining. And if you've made it this far, I'll tell you what, God bless you, because this is a long episode. But I think it's a good episode and worth talking about, because we are a lot like athletes. Followers of Christ are a lot like athletes. It takes commitment, it takes endurance, it takes discipline, and it takes entrusting the process. So remember, it's not easy to follow Jesus. It never has been, and it never will be. but he never asked for easy. He asked for faithfulness. Let's be men and women who train daily, who believe and live discipline, who keep our eyes fixed on the eternal goal, not the temporary comfort. Because at the end of the race, it's not about trophies or wins. It's about hearing the words, well done, good and faithful servant. And that gives me goosebumps. That gives me goosebumps. Lord, thank you for the reminder that discipline and hard work matter, not just in sports, but in our walk with you. Help us stay faithful, consistent, courageous when it's not easy. Give us the strength to follow you daily and to lead others to you through our example in Jesus Christ. Amen. Well, that's a wrap. That's a wrap in episode 5 of Danger Close Podcast. A huge thanks again to Coach Sam Smith and Larry Thornton for joining us today. Remember, faith isn't easy, but it's worth it. Stay disciplined, stay faithful, and remember, stay danger close. God bless.